Okay, so we're going to pick up just where we left off with regards to program design and the strength and conditioning director's role. The director of strength and conditioning should oversee and monitor all performance training programs, including reconditioning. A copy of all programs designed by staff, so for example, your assistant strength and conditioning coaches or associates, they must have all the programming designed by their staff as well as any of their assistants or GAs. So the list of exercises to be performed should also be reviewed on file in the director's office before a team begins the program, right? So it should always be signed off by the director of strength and conditioning. Okay, so let's talk about a workout sheet or a workout card, or what that is. This is the process of generating a workout sheet is different for each strength and conditioning program. So for example, you work on to we've talked about this multiple times throughout the semester, you will train a sprinting athlete or a hurdling athlete completely different than a distance athlete. You will train a linebacker different than a wide receiver for the most part, right? So there's certain things that, programming will be general for most athletes of the team, but sometimes then you have to divide it into subcomponents, right? So they may be focusing on a little bit more agility or different type of footwork, where there's a lot more stability with other types of positions in that sport. So strength conditioning activities should be prearranged. Athletes must have an approved workout sheet when training, right? So this is kind of not a free-for-all. So when you are being monitored, it should be, someone should know what they're doing that day and when, and it shouldn't be like, oh, what are we kind of doing next, right, type of thing. Okay, so facility administration. All facilities must have a list of rules and policies should be posted in the training area where it can be easily seen, right? Most private facilities have this. Athletic training rooms have this. Strength and conditioning facility programs and rooms has this, as well as various different labs. So if you will notice, and when you head into the human performance lab within our department, you will see right as soon as you walk in, right up on the wall is the Human Performance Lab rules and regulations. You've all received that with your handbook as well as any sort of lab activities you've done. You have received those procedures from us, and that is posted up on the wall. So that is expected of all students and all individuals who go into the lab. So the same thing with a strength and conditioning facility. Okay, so emergency planning and response, components of an emergency action plan, that's also posted up on the lab wall, but this should also be posted in a strength and conditioning facility. So emergency activation procedures, names, important names and telephone numbers of primary and secondary, tertiary individuals to contact, specific address of the strength and conditioning facility, and locations of the telephones, locations of the nearest exits, right? This must be known at all times. It is very important that the address and certain things are listed up on the wall, because if an emergency is going on, let's just put you in that scenario for a second, and you have someone with a big injury, or someone, may have passed out or something like that, you may be a little bit flustered and have a lot of adrenaline going. And if you call, let's just say either campus police, or if you call 911, whoever the person you were trying to reach, and they're like, okay, where's your exact address? And you may not remember at that point in time, oh my gosh, I'm like, I know I'm in this building, but I don't know the exact address of the school, of the building, of the street that we are on. So that's why it's important to have it up on the wall. So in case of those situations, you can say, boom, 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 here's our address, this is the time, yada, 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 and so forth. Okay. With the emergency plan continued, designated personnel qualified care to injuries, so sports medicine staff, so our athletic trainers are responsible for certain injuries, as well as, anyone who is CPR first aid certified can also tend to a certain injury and or begin cardio CPR if need be. Where's the ambulance access? Everyone who is working at the strength and conditioning facility should know if an ambulance were to come in, where should they come in, and where's the easiest path to get this to get the person to help. Where's the emergency supplies and first aid kit? Know where those locations are. And how much I say every single time, anytime, if you've taken a CPR course with me, AED, my first question always is, where's your AED? Where's the closest AED in that building? Where's the closest AED in our building? Most of the time, 95% of the time, no one knows where it is. Okay, so it's very important for you to know where you're working, where your AED is, where's your first aid kit, and all sorts of speak. What is your plan of action in case of a fire, tornado, some sort of inclement, terrible weather, life-threatening injury, crime, terrorism, and so forth, right? There needs to be different evacuation plans and different safety plans for all those various situations. Strength and conditioning practitioner should acquire and maintain emergency first response certification, first aid, CPR, AED, right? Very, very important. You were all required as students in the exercise science department to have these certifications before you leave here and graduate. Emergency planning and emergency response, right? Communication. Establish a direct line of communication and formulate a backup plan, and equipment should be readily available in an emergency situation, right? So the AED in our human performance lab, for example, is right up on the wall. Right as soon as you walk in, we hung it right up on the wall so people can easily get to it right as soon as you enter, right? And we know exactly where it is. It's not in the back closet or in a different room or within a drawer that some people might not know where it is, right? So it's easily visible and readily available for someone to get that piece of equipment. Okay, so roles with within the emergency team. You want to provide immediate care to the athletes as time is the most critical factor in emergency situations. Emergency equipment retrieval. Users of the facility should be made aware of the types and locations of the emergency equipment before participation. So for example, again, the AED, where is the first aid kit? So for example, or if someone really cuts themselves bad, you need to be able to get the gloves, get your first aid kit, stop that bleeding, compress and stop that bleeding in case it's a life-threatening situation, right? While someone else is calling emergency personnel. Same with if someone, will say, is going into cardiac arrest. It's very important that someone is running to get that AED, someone's calling the emergency response system, and someone is beginning CPR, right? That is very, very important, right? You want to activate the emergency medical system, establish a method for a direct line of communications, right? So roles are very important. And the individual making the call should have been familiarized with the facility location during the orientation meeting, right? So someone who is making the call needs to be very responsible and needs to know all these procedures and all of these policies when making this call to ensure a success, just in a resuscitation success, or to get the person the help that they needed, especially if they're injured. Okay. And lastly, we're just looking kind of at an example of an emergency protocol. So this might be hung up on the strength and conditioning facility. So this is something you would want to lay out. A sample emergency procedures protocol. So fire, so on the top right corner. 1, step, activate the fire alarm. 2, evacuate the building. Bam, fairly easy, right? You need to know where your evacuation exits are and so forth. A life-threatening situation, here's a list, right? You would call 911, don't move the victim. Victim is conscious, ask permission to administer first aid, administer CPR if necessary, stay with victim until help arrives, and all of that. Environmental situations, activate the appropriate alarm, call 911, account for all parties and rescue personnel, activate the emergency communication plan, and document incident of injury report. So non-life-threatening injury situations, provide first aid, call 911 for medical help, activate emergency communication plan, and then document incident of injury report. So for example, that would be if someone twisted their ankle. It's non-life-threatening, but they injured themselves and they may need to be taped, or if someone cut themselves, let's just say they dropped something in there or something slipped and they cut their finger open and they're bleeding, right? First aid needs to be applied, but this is not a life-threatening situation. Okay. A lot of this is gone over in your first aid as well, certifications, as well as your CPR and AED certifications. So if you are not certified or need to be recertified fairly soon, hopefully we can get that taken care of. It's very important for you as the exercise science professional to be certified in first aid, CPR, AED, and to know all of these types of steps and procedures for these type of situations. Hopefully you never have to deal with them or run into them, but you always have to be prepared, because if you are not, then you're going to run into a lot more issues in the future. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the facility procedures, liability, and legal issues within a strength and conditioning facility. If any of you are interested in opening up your own facility in the future, or renovating and running your own sports performance facility, or being a head strength and conditioning director at a college or university level, as well as, even at the high school level. Okay. This is a good, like I said, diagram to go by, and please read the chapter that goes along with this this lecture in your while you are studying. Okay, thanks everyone.